digging with multiple rumbles in hand.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Ocelot Pride. Do you generally want to start with Ocelot Pride or Guide of Souls?
I like getting Pride down typically. You know, it sort of guarantees it. The Guide of Souls, it can get interacted with and be a little less impactful, where also, like, you might draw something different you want to play, and you just want to get the Pride going, I would say, is generally where it's at. Obviously, context matters a lot in the matchup you're playing.
No, totally. And the way that this can snowball pressure turn over turn can't be really undersold, right?
Yeah, it's a big reason why this, Boros Energy deck can do, like, sort of the Delver games of, like, okay, I play my one drop, and then I'll kill a couple of your things for the next couple turns, hit you a little bit, get that compounding army, and then eventually take over the game.
Okay, then Preordain, the next piece of selection that Jackson's going to cast. Another Malevolent Rumble, another land to the bottom.
Yep, and Lightning Bolt in hand here probably means his Ocelot Pride's going down.
Did we draw a card off Preordain?
I think we did, yeah.
Important part of the card.
Yeah, some would say the best part.
All right. Gabriel offering the cut from that fetch shock last turn. Back to him.
Yeah, Malevolent Rumble, Mox Opal in hand.
All right.
Another Pride.
One good cat deserves another. Or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
All right. Mox Opal comes down. And Imri. This one goes in and out a lot.
Yes. And there's a grinding station. All right, so we found that for when we do get our breach.
And that's one of the best places for it to be. You don't have to spend a draw step on it, but you can still combo out of your graveyard with Underworld Breach. That's part of what's so strong about this deck is you can have nothing, and all of a sudden, here's Underworld Breach, here's the kill.
Yep. The one thing that, Gabriel can do is we can Thraben Charm to get rid of the graveyard. So if the Grape Shot hits the yard ahead of time, we could get rid of that and force us to have to win through a backup measure. Now, we have main deck Lightning Bolt, which means we can sometimes do that, but Bolt was already used. So we'd have to switch into the full-on controlling role, which you can sometimes do, but is not the easiest thing to do against the energy deck. It's pretty good at fighting through most sort of, interactive decks that aren't fully committed to being interactive.
And something I want to point out really quick is that Jackson's killing with Grape Shot. That's not something that we've seen very much this weekend, and that could end up being a problem if you gain a bunch of life with something like Ocelot Pride.
Yeah, Ocelot Pride and Guide of Souls theoretically can get really, really large life totals, and if you have like a rough starting point with Grape Shot, you might not be able to get there. Now, obviously, we can go like Grape Shot, Storm, Grape Shot again, right? Sort of do 2 or 3 shots, but that's assuming you have the resources and time to do that. That's not always a given.
Oh, no, just a Goblin Bombardment and a pass back with Gabriel missing the 3rd land drop.
Yeah, and also valuing the Ocelot Pride pretty highly here. Could have attacked and then sacked after first strike to trade with the Imri, but wants to keep the Pride in hand might mean something like an Ajani is in hand.
Okay, sure. And, Malevolent Rumble really hitting the who's who of options.
Yeah, I mean, we could take any of these cards, and then also all those Moxen are available with Imri.
Exactly. Urza's Saga the Get. That communicates to me that Jackson might be trying to settle in for a slightly longer game, and I can't blame him with Gabriel missing land drops.
Definitely.
So we've got an Eldrazi spawn. Imri going to go ahead and recur Box Amber.
Give us that mana.
Urza's Saga gets a counter. So Mox Opal not online at the moment.
Yeah, it is still 1 away, and, while Grinding Station, if you were to get that on the board with Breach, would finish it off, for now you only have blue and a colorless up, which is important to keep in mind.
Urza's Saga hopefully going to turn on the Mox Opal here in a second.
Yep.
All right, Ocelot Pride into the red zone. Jackson taking that. Did have the block sack option, but really hard to justify that. Oh.
Here comes a Johnny. And now we have a cat token being played off of Johnny. And we can sacrifice a cat to transform a Johnny. With a red permanent, we can shoot down the Imri as well, get it off the battlefield, or just go face.
This is so funny. You end up having the ability to do some weird stack tricks, right? Where you can Goblin Bombardment, ping the Imri, transform the Ajani, and then shoot it for 1. But because you're doing one over and over and over, it adds up to enough eventually.
Yeah, definitely. You can also shoot down the spawn. You'll get a token when you make with the plussing of the
So
Johnny.
you get the instep one too. You're
Yeah,
totally right.
you get the instep, and then you also get the Emery dead, so you sort of can blow up a lot of mana sources here. And it looks like, Gabriel's saying, hey, it's not transformed yet. I'm still grabbing this token. I'm going to flip it in a second, So a little bit of shortcutting here, not taking the time to do it. But, we do want to be efficient with our time.
All right. Few tokens hitting the battlefield.
Saga going up. There's Emery.
Okay, so this is another mill. Hits a Mishra's Bobble. At this point, it feels like Jackson is more just trying to build towards a combo.
Yeah, I think we're looking for the Underworld Breach. We just want to stay alive long enough to do that. Spell Pierce in hand, Malevolent Rumble in hand.
Oh, left a card on top. What could it be?
I mean, probably a Breach, but Rumble is the only other card. Maybe Preordain.
Rumble's not a bad one. That's fair. Yeah, you can bin it, but it is 4 looks instead of the 1 look.
Yeah, unless you literally are tied up on mana, which won't be a huge issue after this Saga pops.
All right, so back to Gabriel, who's been struggling on lands a little bit, but is starting to really get some pressure.
Yep. Johnny is going to be able to take care of the Emery pretty easily. But these constructs are going to be 3/3s. That makes attacking a little awkward. You even see the lining up. Yeah, here are the tokens I might need this game, including these constructs.
Uh-oh. I wonder if this is like the pin on the life pad trick, where you're going, I don't have an Underworld Breach coming. I have 2 constructs.
No, I think this is I'm about to get attacked for a lot. I need these constructs. I think the grabbing of the clue really makes it less of the pin, you know what I mean? It's just like, hey, I'm just grabbing the ones we're going to need this match.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. As it looks like Gabriel's doing some math, like, okay, where do I want these Ajani damage to go, right? Because shooting the face for a large amount means, Jackson would go down to 12 before we cast anything else here for Gabriel.
And it's so interesting because one of the strengths of this Boros energy deck is it does let you modulate your damage so well with cards like Goblin Bombardment, where your resources just end up being really fungible in a lot of ways, where you can say, okay, where do I actually want my damage to go?
Oh.
How am I going to use Planeswalkers? How am I going to use my second Ajani coming down?
I mean, this is huge, right? We are one thing away from the City's Blessing, which would be massive if that does end up happening via maybe another land, another spell main phase 2. But we're going to be able to shoot with Ajani, then maybe throw a cat, shoot again. I'm trying to do the math. How close are we to lethal? Because there's 5 cats on the board / creatures on the board right now. The Ajani will make the 6th happen. If we go upstairs, that's 10. We sack a cat, that's 9. Transform Ajani, 6 again. That's 3. Sack, you're dead.
Oh no, someone missed a land drop.
Yeah, and this, Spell Pierce that Jackson had in hand, it sometimes is okay in this matchup. You're not really playing in the main deck for this here. It's just rotting away as all these creatures come down, as I think Gabriel's double-checking the math.
Okay, so we see Ajani get minus, then another Ajani flip.
Cat you again. 5 you, excuse me, the Ajani's gone, so it's only 5, but there are 5 cats in play.
Oh, of course. How could we forget?
Yep. And then you attack, you can block, you sack the one that you block. I'll hit you, you're dead. Yep.
Yep, that's it. Oh my god, that was so explosive. That's funny. You could tell, okay, a lot of math going on, a lot of math, and it was the breach. So Jackson was just one top deck away from winning themselves.
Yeah, I mean, and that really shows just why players love the Ajani plus Bombardment thing. You see some players be like, oh, Bombardment's so bad if you ever draw the second one. But getting that first one is so big in so many matchups.
What, 2 mana, it let Gabriel divide 2 or 3 damage early, and then was just worth, what, 8 damage or something out of nowhere at the end?
Oh, yeah, it was worth 11, I think.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny with Soulfire Immolation, is that the card where it's fling your whole board, basically? That's like a 6 mana card, and you're getting it for 2 with the Bombardment.
Definitely.
So, moving to the sideboards, I feel like Gabriel got away with something based on how much hate there is for the deck.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, Gabriel's sort of, tried, had a 2-lander, got there, and sort of, now gets to be on the play at least for game number 3, and is guaranteed that game number 3 with this really powerful sideboard against the energy deck. I mean, we talked a bit about it earlier. Stony Silence ×3, Wear, Tear. Both cards are really going to want. Orim's Chant, something that's kind of nice. Wrath of the Skies, maybe. Surgical, maybe.
Yeah, there are so many different things that you can do. I worry a little bit about diluting your deck past the point of being able to apply pressure, because looking over to Jackson's side of the sideboard, there are a lot of ways to adopt a sort of fairer role.
Definitely. I mean, we hop over to the Breach sideboard. We have these Bosages for these Stonies. We really need those. Also can hit Bombardment. Kind of nice. Fire Spout, something you're going to want to bring in here so it can clean up the board. You have, Jace to beat the Surgical. That way you can't get all in on one. Nature Claim, Bosaju, a lot of little things. You can even see the Pithing Needle for the Ajani on the backside or the Bombardment on the front side. Red and 6 isn't the worst in the world either. Let you play the fair game plan. It's really, sort of how do you want to play it here from Jackson, as you have a lot available to you.
Yeah, how do you want to play it was kind of what I was asking, was what I was thinking to myself when looking at the deck list sheet, because something that we've seen Breach players do all weekend is just approach different matchups in their own ways. I know something like Soul Guide Lantern might normally look really bad in this matchup, except checking Flage might be something that Jackson cares a lot about when it comes to playing an Urza Saga game.
Definitely. So we're going to have to see how those players want to finish up their sideboarding here.
Right. I really like looking at Jackson's sideboard and seeing this Jace Wielder of Mysteries as a way that you can win through a lot of life from Flage or something like that.
Definitely. Well, let's look at Dragon Shield for a second, as Dragon Shield and Beckett are helping sponsor this weekend's coverage.
Yeah, this is making tabletop coverage possible in more ways than they normally do, right? Normally, Dragon Shield is just keeping your cards safe. One of my favorite sleeve brands.
Definitely, but they're here helping us put it on. So a big thank you to them. Check out Dragon Shield for all your sleeve products.
I know, I keep saying this. I literally have 2,000 of the same kind of Dragon Shield for all my cubes, all my constructed decks, and I've had them for years because that's what you can do with them.
Definitely. So make sure to check them out.
Looking back to the sideboards, I wonder how much we're looking at things like Fire Spout coming in. I know we've seen earlier in the event, we saw Pyroclasm being one of the premium ways to check how wide the Boros Energy deck's battlefields can become. I think Jackson's going to be reaching for it here.
Yeah, it's sort of just a mana more for Pyroclasm, but does clean up stuff like Ranger Captain, can get an Ocelot Pride that's grown with a Soul Guide, or Guide of Souls, pardon me. So I think you want it, and it's sort of being played because of Drannith Magistrate. That's like the big reason to play this card over Pyro is, hey, one more mana, one more damage. Not a deal you maybe are super wanting against the aggro decks quite often, but when one of the cards like Drannith Magistrate locks you out of playing, you're willing to pay that tax.
And I think that really speaks to how curated a lot of these choices are. Normally, whenever you're playing a combo deck, you don't care that much about interacting. What you're doing is you're trying to answer a very specific kind of question.
Definitely. And I like this here. We've seen some players split it too, but, having sort of the one that you can reliably have is a totally great way to approach it as well. And, a little bit of transformational stuff going on too, right? Can bring in the Jace, bring in the Ren, bring in the Fire
See
Spout.
Jackson with 3 different piles. Speaking of transformational, this is someone really looking to have a plan.
Yeah, I saw Jackson, a couple of the cards there. Ren 6 was brought in. That was one of the cards. Fire Spout was one of the cards. So maybe taking a more controlling approach here to games 2 and 3.
And Ren and 6 in a lot of ways really is just its own one-card plan. I know Urza Saga is a card we've seen basically solo people where you just make a 4/4 or a 5/5 construct. The second Urza Saga is even more backbreaking.
Yep, doubles it up on it and giving you access to those artifacts with high-impact sideboard things. Like Soul Guide Lantern might not seem like the greatest thing in the world against these energy decks, but Flage is something how they really rely on after you've interacted a lot to go the distance. So making a couple of creatures, then getting your Soul Guide Lantern to cover the Flage just really takes care of things. It looks like Jackson was taking a second there to make sure, like, okay, I do want to do this. Now let's do a little counting and make sure we got 60.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, I think Ren and 6 and Jace also just play into threat diversification in a way that Jackson's really interested in doing. Wrath of the Skies is such a hammer against an Urza Saga, which intentionally, that was how we drew it up. But having cards that are just planeswalkers that will stick around and help Jackson continue to stay in the game is going to be so important.
Definitely. It looks like these players are finishing shuffling up, and we're going to get started in game number 2 here in just 1 second.
Something I can't wait to see is basically how reactive Gabriel chooses to be. I know being on the play versus being on the draw can really change those dynamics a lot. You had spoken before to the fact that if Jackson does win this game, Gabriel will be on the play, and I think we would expect to see a lot of fast starts, one-drop creatures, games like that last one where Gabriel didn't actually do anything that disruptive, just literally tried to burn Jackson out pretty quickly. But when you're on the back foot against some of the starts that Grinding Breach can put up, you have to pay so much respect to the fact that you might just die out of nowhere.
Definitely. I mean, the best way to beat Breach is sort of clock plus disruption.
Yes.
That is sort of what the deck falls to. But a fast enough clock can get the job done. We just don't see a lot of that. We don't see a lot of burn these days. We don't see a lot of those super fast aggro starts because things like Blink with, Solitude ephemerating that is just so good at stopping that. And it kind of allows the Breach deck to sort of exist in a way.
Both decks mulliganing pretty quickly. And one of the nice things about Boros Energy and Grinding Breach and why they're so popular right now is they're both pretty good at mulliganing.
Definitely. I think a real bar for sort of passing the torch when it comes to modern decks and, like, am I able to actually, play this or not, is can my deck survive a mulligan to 5? If your deck can't mulligan to 5 consistently, and we can take a look at these deck lists for a second here on the screen, looking at this deck, if your deck can't mull to 5, it's going to have a hard time, and you're just going to mulligan. This deck's so mana efficient and so powerful, easy to imagine 5-card combinations that can solo a game.
Right, you can see a bunch of threats here that are just really good at accruing value in their own ways. Ragavan, Ocelot Pride, Flage, Seasoned Pyromancer, these are all things that help you make up a resource deficit.
Definitely. Same here, right? When it comes to Jackson's Breach deck, these baubles give you some redraws plus Imri. You have a lot of selection, Malevolent Rumble unless you find a specific thing, and then Underworld Breach can undo a mulligan. So, very powerful.
All right, it looks like our players have some hands that they like. Hedge Maze showing Jackson an Unholy Heat they do not like.
Yep. Of note, Jackson does have Underworld Breach in the opener.
Okay, well, Gabriel has Guide of Souls on the battlefield.
1-2, attack you.
Okay, quick fetch with a Scalding Tarn. Feels like Jackson has a hand that they're really comfortable to play here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a lot of what you're wanting, right, is to have, like, some interaction, we work towards your combo. I couldn't quite make out the full hand, but maybe the ability to break up something that my opponent's trying to do to stop me, and then we call it a day.
All right. Grinding Station on the battlefield.
Trigger.
So, Grinding Station, very old card, templated a little differently than how we do it now. Always gets that untapped trigger from anything, and Stony Silence from Gabriel Nichols. Jackson has to find something to do about this now.
True. Now, one good thing for Jackson is his Grinding Station will still trigger. You just won't be able to use it. Trigger.
Okay. Mox Amber hits the battlefield. Imri time? Imri time.
Imri, that's going to be a good one. Now, we do have to get rid of the Stony Silence, but still getting Imri down so you can get your breaches to work and generate value is super big. And you can still cast these artifacts if your Imri gets to hang around and set up for the moment where it's like, okay, claim that, buy back an Opal, bam, boom, you're dead.
Ooh, that's a spot where I think Jackson really wanted to find something like an Urza's Saga, but didn't have another land to play.
Yeah, and I think Jackson, we kept a hand that was like station on 2, breached on 3, Amber, you're dead.
You just have to, right, exactly. You can't mulligan that hand, especially on 6.
Yeah, I mean, you just have like a turn 3 win.
Right.
What more do you want? Turn 2? Sure. Whatever. Mulligan, I guess. As we are going to see Gabriel take a second to think here. This is sort of when the big pivotal turn. We would turn 1, develop threat, love it. Turn 2, develop a roadblock, love it. Breach is really good at beating the first roadblock. It's pretty good at beating the second. The third is typically the thing that is unstoppable. So Gabriel deciding, okay, do I want to develop to the board? Do I want to hold up my mana for like a card like Wear Tear? Do I want to play like another Stony Silence? How do I want to play these turns? These are pivotal because I don't want to give too much time, but I also don't want to give you too much grace. It looks like Thraben Charm is going to go for the kill spell mode.
Interesting.
Dealing damage to a target creature equal to twice as many creatures as you control.
Yep, makes sense. And this is just Gabriel basically signaling that he wants to shrink the battlefield at this point. Okay, Beseiju going after Stony Silence while Jackson still controls a legendary creature.
This makes sense. I mean, you could float the mana. Actually, you can't float the mana because of the Stony Silence, which is what you would normally like to do. So just get rid of it now. Even though this might mean Gabriel can play another Stony, you just got to do what you're going to do. And we know we have the game wrapped up in hand. assuming the game state doesn't change in a meaningful way.
Yep. Okay, so here's that Plains from the Boseiju.
So Gabriel back to having 2 mana available. Big lines open. Second Stony is available. We could have Wear Tear up. You could develop something like a Johnny, but we know if you tap out, it might be game over.
Gotta come in Jackson on their poker face.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of just stone face through all this. Stony Silence hits, cool as a cucumber. Here's the second Guide of Souls for Gabriel.
Yeah, and the real question is, was Gabriel playing, Thraben Charm into Guide of Souls is always the plan? Or was the plan to maybe Thraben Charm hold up like a Wear Tear, pass, and now we give him the mana? We'll have to see if Jackson feels like they can play through it, but we're going to go for it real quick here. And Gabriel might have interaction. We'll have to see.
All right, very, very quickly putting Gabriel to the test. The Underworld Breach resolves. Some cards getting exiled to escape what I'm going to guess is Mox Opal.
I imagine that would be the one you want to get. It sort of starts a chain off, gives us mana so we can cast things like our Emery.
All right. Trigger.
Trigger. Make a mana.
Ooh, this resolved.
Yep, and we're seeing...
Where didn't get cast.
Yeah, normally this would be the spot where it was. It's possible we have a card like Orum's Chant, and we were waiting maybe to see sort of what would happen, but it looks like we're going to definitely fetch and cast something. There's a Wear Tear.
There's Wear. All right. It appears Underworld Breach has been torn. Grinding Station likely going to untap here in just a second, and then we'll see Jackson mill some cards from this Grinding Station activation. That's going to be Bobble, Fire Spout, Imri. Station untaps. Another Mox Opal. Okay. Oh, are we going to see another combo? There's a blue in the pool. There's a red in the pool.
Yeah,
No.
Another breach should be strong here. Remember, Gabriel couldn't respond before the first cast of something.
Another breach! Oh my god! You can see Gabriel shaking the head go, of course, of course.
It always happens to me. And remember, I was going to say, we were going to pick up the cards. We were tapped out there.
The Jace was face up in Jackson's graveyard. Gabriel knows that's lights out.
Yeah, and we saw Gabriel, you have the right kind of hand there, right? We had a good clock. We had good 2 pieces of disruption. We mentioned it earlier, though. First piece, beatable.
Yes.
Second piece, normally beatable. Third piece, that's where it typically gets too much to handle. And Jackson fought through it all.
Yeah, that was a really nice showing. So that means we are going to go to game 3 with Jackson having won the second game.
Yep, so still one more to go. But Gabriel going to be on the play. Looks like both players are actually just going to maintain their current configurations.
Yeah, and there's certainly a point where whenever games can go long, you have to wonder, okay, is it worth it to spend a bunch of time reconstructing my deck if I'm shaving 3 minutes off the clock? Probably not.
Definitely. One thing I've noticed is Gabriel could have got to see Jackson's deck. Jackson did need to mill the deck. Gabriel feeling very confident in how the sideboarding might have occurred. These players maybe also know each other, too.
Yeah, right.
They might kind of know, okay, yeah, this is sort of how we play this matchup. I'm not going to take a second. Like you mentioned, time can be a real factor in these grindier games. Not really worth it to me.
What about the stationary games?
Time not a factor in those.
All right, these players are shuffling up. Do you think play-draw dynamics, they've got to matter a lot, right?
Yeah, I mean, imagine that game, but, Gabriel's on the play, right? We get to get the Guide of Souls down as well, and they also, like another one, so we're putting a little bit more pressure, and maybe it's easier for us to hold up the full Wear and Tear, and we take out the artifact and the enchantment.
It was so funny. We saw Gabriel flash a copy of Ragavan at the end. Mm-hmm. You have to wonder if Gabriel was on the play, Jackson scries top with something like Hedge Maze, Ragavan can just take the Underworld Breach out.
Definitely, yeah. It's something that could happen. Also just gets extra mana.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, just develop some more threats.
All right, players drawing 7 cards, seeing if they're happy with them.
Grape Shot in the hand here for Jackson.
Not a bad interactive piece here. That's the real draw to the card over Thassa's Oracle, right? Is that you actually get to point it at your opponent's card sometimes.
Yeah, Thassa's Oracle, great at blocking.
Yes.
Right? Sort of
yes.
sometimes could be better than Grape Shot, but Grape Shot guarantees it. right? It's like, okay, you can kill my Oracle, but my Oracle can hold back all the Ocelot Prides need be.
All right, well, Elegant Parlor shows Gabriel something that he likes on top of the library. Scalding Tarn gets cracked by Jackson, and they're going to kick things off with Tomio.
The Inquisitive student. Probably a Steam Fence here. Going to be the fetch.
Just thumbing through. There it is, that Steam Vents we've been talking about. A fetch and an Ajani from Gabriel. Way more pressure than last game.
Yeah, definitely. Now, luckily, we have Tamio from the side of Jackson to actually alleviate some of that. We can, 0-3 blocks pretty well. Sort of could leave it back if we were feeling that sort of pressure.
It is really interesting, right? There's a point where if your plan is to combo and you don't think you're going to be playing much of an Urza Saga game, maybe the life is just worth it.
Yeah, especially if it maybe forces, Gabriel's hand, right? Obviously, Gabriel would prefer to flip the cat, as that is a cat token that has been customized to lose lifelink and gain a power, as I see in the feature match area. But yeah,
it's called an altar, Sweaty. Look it up.
I only know secret layers, as we see a fetch here. But yeah, I mean, like, the clue's great, turns on Mox Opal. But if you feel like you have it rolled up and you just need life in a little bit of time, well, holding back is something that's pretty reasonable. It could tax the mana.
I think I saw Kappa Cannoneer hiding out in Jackson's hand.
That's one that makes you want to get the
really
clue.
Nice to improvise.
Yeah, that's a big one for attacking. And it looks like Jackson agrees with the attack. Get that clue. Now, we're going to cast Mox Amber. With a couple more artifacts, the Kappa could come down. Here's the Imri. See if it hits. A Mishra's Bauble, a great one to bring back.
The Jace again.
Yep, Unholy Heat as well, joining the crew. We're going to see Grape Shot.
Ooh.
I believe that's our third spell. So we're going to stack it in a way where the Ajani is going to die first before the cat so it doesn't transform.
Correct.
So that's why we actually targeted the cat first, then Ajani with our hand motions.
Super cool seeing it mop up everything there. I played a lot of Gift Storm back in the day, and I love the Fair Grape Shot.
Definitely, and this is what we talk about. This is why players like Corey Baumeister really like Grape Shot. He advocates for it a lot because it gets to do that where, Thoughts Oracle, a card I like, could engage in combat, but not as profitably as cleaning up the battlefield. And we mentioned it so much today, Carmen. Clock plus disruption. That's the name of the game. We have none of it currently for Gabriel.
And something that the Grinding Breach deck does such a good job of is just having a ton of mana, being explosive. Despite being on the draw, Jackson's been the one able to get out on the table.
Yep. And we have Imri able to get a bobble. Tamio make a clue. Improvise out. A Kappa Cannoneer is available this turn.
And of note, look, Stony Silence on Gabriel's side of the battlefield, that's not going to do anything about a Kappa Cannoneer, but Beseiju, Jackson says, I don't really want to deal with Stony Silence, thank you.
Interesting to see this so aggressively. Do we maybe have the combo rolled up?
All right, here's a Baba.
All right.
Oh, it wasn't Kappa Cannoneer, it's just an Odawara.
Oh, okay. All right. I
Not
was
so bad.
Yeah, as another bobble comes down. This makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, really understand why the Beseiju wanted to go after the Stony Silence in this case, where there's just a bunch of sort of hidden cards behind 2 clues and 2 bobbles.
Yeah, I mean, we just have a lot of cards that we're going to get and rebuild here with the Odawara to protect our 2 creatures that generate a lot of advantage. And, the real question to me is Jackson going to want to transform this Tamio in order to sort of, get the flip Planeswalker version? Or do we just want, that clue every turn cycle, pop and draw a couple cards? Plays pretty differently in every game, which is kind of a cool thing with this Planeswalker from MTG.
It's really hard, right? It's basically choosing, do you want to play around Burn, where transforming Tamio on your opponent's turn and having it at 2? Pretty scary. Or do you want to play around Wrath of the Skies and go ahead and get a Planeswalker on the battlefield? Mm-hmm. Okay, and it looks like Jackson is saying not yet. Goes ahead, bobbles Gabriel on upkeep.
Yeah, write down Seasoned Pyro so we don't forget it. I like this as well. We pop the 1. Gives us the option to have it transform on our turn if we wanted to, but also we stagger our draws.
Yes.
Right? That way we don't force them if we don't want to.
Oh, here's the Wrath of the Skies for 3. It's going to get Imri too.
Yeah, and now we do have Odawara, so we can save one of these creatures if we want to.
Just cracking a clue instead.
Yeah, I kind of like this. These creatures are fine, but they're very beatable. So just get your raw cards. Looks like that was a Wear Tear. It looked to be a split card to me. That's 2 bobble triggers on the stack now. Mox Opal was the draw. And yeah, I'll spend all the energy.
And it's funny because of the energy deck making its own energy, a lot of the times you do just either want to make more energy to have some left over or don't even need to spend as much as you're going to spend. Or, excuse me, pay as much into X as you're going to spend energy.
Definitely. Emery was picked up there off our redraws from Bobble. Soul Guide Lantern, one of the artifacts. We mentioned this before. Might seem a little weird, but Flage plays a big role in the late game.
Goodbye, Ajani.
Mox Opal.
All right, that Emery you've been talking about to replace the first one. Flips over some more artifacts, actually. Another Bobble, another Opal.
Yeah, definitely some nice stuff. You know, if we can keep this Emery on the board, things are going to be looking good for us.
We previously centered the conversation around things like making up the card deficit from a mulligan, but Emery also great whenever your opponent just has a hammer like Wrath of the Skies at helping you get some cards back.
Definitely. We still got Vanek Dischargers written down there from one of the Bobbles. That's going to get Emery taken care of. One energy left behind, and then Ranger Captain.
Really nice get for Gabriel. This is something that isn't quite the hammer that Stony Silence is, but it is able to really interrupt an Underworld Breach combo.
Definitely. As Guide of Souls comes down, that's something that can grow our creatures outside of Fire Sprout range.
All right, Bulk goes after that Ranger Captain. Jackson really wanting to find a way to combo with an Underworld Breach now. Another Emery.
It's a good place to be. And these Emerys haven't hit grinding stations or Underworld Breaches. A sort of little give a take.
One of those
right?
things is good. Yeah,
yeah. It's like I would love to hit a station. I'm glad I didn't lose any breaches. I'll say that, you know. So a little give, a little take. As it looks like Otawara still in hand here for Jackson. I think really wanted to save that for something like a Stony Silence, right?
Yes.
We used our Boseiju earlier. We have the Rin 6 brought in so we can pick that back up if need be. But we want to make sure we're just not stone cold, something like that. Season Pyro still in hand for Gabriel.
Okay, Johnny getting cast.
Yep.
Bring his brother with him. Cannon event en route. Guide of Souls, 3 energy. And here's that Pyromancer.
Yeah. And I'm not sure how many cards are in hand for Gabriel, but I think we're able to deploy most of our hands. So, yeah, just one. So we're going to go up a card.
I think that was 2. I think it was a land and an Ocelot Pride.
Gotcha. Well, that's going to give us only one more token if that's the case, which is another energy, another life. And now we get to jump this Guide of Souls, attacking for 3.
All right. This is that pressure that Gabriel needs to find because this is the spot where Jackson is 1 or 2 cards away from successfully being able to kill out of nowhere, but they are only 1 or 2 cards away from killing out of nowhere.
Definitely. This is a spot where Underworld Breach and sort of start chaining Malevolent Rumbles is something that would be the way to get out of here. You know, we're maybe rumbling into a breach.
Yes.
And we're going to see, yeah, the starts of that with the Soul Guide Lantern being popped. Despite wanting artifacts from Mox Opal, we just need to get to the card, the Underworld Breach, and it will do the rest.
Right. 11 sounds like a lot of life for Jackson, but they are saying, okay, I saw earlier 16 was not a safe life total.
Definitely. Looks like there might be some clarification on life totals, I think, via like fetching and shocking.
Okay, they're just double checking, making sure every point matters, and I know we say that sort of stuff a lot, but especially when cards like Goblin Bombardment get involved, having it be very precisely correct is important.
Huh. Yeah, I think it is just a moment of our life total tracker and what they had on paper is different, and I think that's why you're seeing the players point to the land a little and thinking about stuff like, when did I shock this? I grabbed this one tapped. I believe one of the Sacred Foundries came and tapped off of Boseiju, so that might be where some of the confusion might be happening, as a player thought it was shocked when it wasn't, etc. But we'll take that care of in just a second here.
Yeah, it's also possible something went strange with the grape shot. I know there was a little bit of a, wait, hold on, what are these being stacked in? What's the order that things are dying? Maybe something goes upstairs.
Yeah, very easy to be like, yeah, whatever, I lost my one, but I lost my board, I've lost the game, you know, defeated moment, and you just don't mark the one, or maybe you mismark
right,
the one,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Definitely been there lots of times where it's like, yeah, no, I like I took the one or whatever, and it's like you say, "What's your life total, Mason?" And I go 18, and I look at my paper and it says 19, and I go, "Oops," and I mark it off.
So something that sticks out to me once they get back to the game is that Jackson could draw something like Fire Spout here, but Guide of Souls is a 3/4.
Definitely.
That's so awkward.
It's super awkward. I'll tell you what's not going to be awkward, though, is when we go to SCG Charlotte in just 1 month from now for the second half of the regional championship for this cycle.
I know. That's something where we've seen a ton of adaptations in both of these decks just over the weekend, and who is successful, who's not successful. A lot of it has come down to really cool card choices. I know we see that Jackson has a bunch of small tweaks that they've made to Breach, and it's paying off in a big way, and you're going to see even more of that in Charlotte, March 7th through 9th here in just about a month.
Yeah, I mean, exactly a month from today, I guess, for the Sunday half of it. But
Right,
yeah. But I'm super excited to see sort of where that all goes. You can get all the details by going to starcitygames.com/SCGCon.
All right, so we're heading back down, and Charlotte, we're both going to be there. That's basically a hometown one for me.
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, it's really close to me as well. And I think, you and I are commentating it along with Corey and Jim Davis.
Yes.
So that's going to be a fun weekend.
I'm really excited about it. I mean, Charlotte's one of those places that just has a lot of history, especially with Star City Games. There have been a bunch of invitationals there. There have been, I swear, it felt like we went there 3 times a year or something like that for a long time. It's always been consistently fun.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great place to go. A lot you can do in the town as well. So lots of fun things to happen in Charlotte.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things, we've talked a little bit about how the format's been adapting. Honestly, a lot. The format's been adapting. I think we're going to see Blink really change a lot between now and then.
Yeah, the what matters in the sideboard is a ton. And the thing we haven't talked too much about is players who adopt Torpor Orb in their sideboard to fight the Blink deck. We haven't seen it too much in our feature match area. Maybe telling, maybe not. But in the streets, I heard a lot of I got Torpor Orb this weekend, right? And a lot of Blink players were like, well, I have a March or two in my sideboard. Maybe I need to put one in my main. Maybe I got to figure out some way to get more answers to Torpor Orb and Alice Knorr and Mother of Machines as well. So, we're seeing players fight over those decks. I'm curious to see how it adapts as time goes on.
All right, great news. We're back to the game. We've got life totals corrected. It's 22-11, and it's Jackson's turn.
Underworld Breach.
It was an Underworld Breach. That draw off the Soul Guide Lantern actually mattered a ton.
Every little thing matters at Magic at this level.
Oh, my God.
And now, Gabriel's, I think, only card that is in the deck we can interact with is a Surgical. Now, Surgical could matter a lot here because we might be able to keep us off of the ability to turn this Mox Opal if we sort of depends on the graveyard situation and the total mana spent here. But I don't know if Gabriel has it. We only have, I think, one card left in hand. Imri is able to play back something like a Mishra's Bauble here for free, not cost you any sort of cards in the yard.
I think there's a Mox Amber hiding out, maybe.
Oh, there is. Yeah, there's the one from the mill.
Yeah, and that one doesn't need a ton to get off the ground, right? This is just a blue mana because of the Imri.
Definitely, and that's going to have big implications here.
All right, and you can tell Jackson's going, okay, I think I've actually fallen into the wind. I just need to not screw it up. Obviously, still needs to find a grinding station.
Yes,
but
but
has a lot of looks.
We have a lot of Imris we can legend roll. We have a lot of Malevolent Rumbles. We're going to start with a fetch. We are dangerously close here. And also, it could all end with just a Grape Shot to clean up the board. Maybe we can't get to 22, but maybe we can get a Grape Shot enough that a Johnny's dead. A couple of these tokens are dead, and it's just the Guide of Souls versus.
Oh, wow. We have to get a tap land with our fetch. Maybe the untapped fetchables have already been milled.
Possibly. Also, it's a way to dig a card deeper.
Sure.
Right? No matter what. If it's the station, you're happy. If it's not, you've been in as well. Obviously, untapped mana is great. But, yeah, I mean, losing the Mox Amber there, not the end of the world. As soon as we find another Mox Opal as well, we can chain those. I mean, our graveyard's so big, it's going to be so easy to rumble.
Okay, well, let's see it. We got the Breach. And like you said, looks like Rumble's about to come out. Oh, Mishra's Bauble first. Got to get this Mox Opal online.
Yep. And this matters a lot, too. By doing this, you guarantee that you have the Opal, which you maybe want for future turns in case there is some sort of interaction. Also, we talked about how Surgical could get weird. Making sure that you have this online is nice.
Okay, so tapping Opal. Looks like it's for green.
Big sign for a Rumble.
Shout out Jackson writing it all down so we can see it's a green.
Yep.
Here's that Rumble.
So that's going to give us back a colorless in the form of the Scion, which means with this breeding pool, we're guaranteed at least one more Rumble if we want it. We also got that Storm count going.
Yep.
So far, if we were just to cast a Grape Shot at this moment, Carmen, we could kill the Guide of Souls and a token.
All right, Beseju, Bobble, Imri. The Fire Spout
Yeah.
takes an Imri. That's a lot. That's another mill.
Yeah, another mill, definitely. We see that come up a lot here in the past with a bunch of Ambers being able to loop. Here's the second Mox Opal, getting it out of the graveyard. And I think the way Gabriel's looking, it doesn't seem to me like a surgical. I think it's a moment of, I've got to fade in the feature match area here. I'm 10-1. I just need to hold that a little longer.
It's not clear to me Jackson even needs the grinding station.
Well, I mean, yeah, the Grape Shot to clean the board up definitely is on the table at this rate.
Well, there's a Jace in the graveyard.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, I don't know the cards in deck, but it is a huge graveyard.
Right, exactly. You
yeah.
started the turn with, literally 20 cards in the graveyard.
Yeah, so, I mean, every Rumble, when it gets... Oh, there's the grinding station.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, whether you need it or not, it sure makes things easy.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it goes here. We're going to probably see it get cast right away.
Okay, so here's the Eldrazi spawn.
Yeah, if you cast the station now...
Here's another Mox Opal.
Yeah, and we see Gabriel like, yep, I don't have the surgical. And so congratulations to Jackson, 11-1.